Hey y'all, welcome back to Right at the Wire. Well, as part of our Belmont card series, we're going to explore the late pick four for Friday's card, so let's take a look. First leg of the late pick four is the seventh, and it's a starter allowance for 3-year-olds and up fillies and mares run on the dirt at 6 furlongs. Number one is La Aguililla, and it's trained by David Jacobson, and he's got a Rod Ortiz aboard. They're winning at 60%, and his barn is just about as hot as it can be. He's 32% third off the layoff, so all that's positive. But here's the problem: this horse has been running in this class and has been in the money the last two, one of them being on turf. But the big problem is, I think this one has second-itis. If you look, 1 for 34, 6 seconds, 11 thirds. That's something a trainer can't usually correct. If a horse has second-itis, they have it. That's all there is to it. So there are some positives for sure, but you can see that this one hasn't won in 2 years, so it's kind of hard to back, maybe underneath at best, in my opinion. Number two is Alice Cramden. She's first against winners after breaking her maiden at the 30,000 level pretty convincingly. But note that was a huge jump from her prior effort, debuting at 3. And now you're going against winners where there is other speed in this race. PJ Quick is 24% first off the claim. That's true. But note, this one went for $200,000 at the Keeneland September sale, and they were willing to part with her for $30,000. That's a big red flag to me. This one could run a good race. That's true. You get Jose Lezcano aboard, but I think it's a tall order first time against winners. Number three is Carbon, and I haven't made up my mind yet, but this one looks kind of like a second-itis candidate as well, but I'm not as certain as I am about the one. You see, the last race was a really nice race. I mean, the sort of saved ground on the rail and then swung out and made a big move 7 wide and just missed getting up. And it was a nice effort in class. So you got to like that. It was in the mud. So it looks like this one, that was her career high in the mud, replicated it. So, has dropped in class, was running at the N1X level, and was sort of, just the longer she stayed in the class, the worse it got. So obviously it was a good move to move her out. You see Linda Rice claimed her, and then I guess they switched over to another trainer, but in any event, I think this one's probably more likely to be underneath, but is a good class fit here and did display some good kick in the last one. Number four is Try It Again. This one looks just like the form is declining, and you go back, 4 back to the starter allowance win, or not win, but got the career high 74, and followed it up with a pretty nice effort at the N1X level. But the longer she stayed at the N1X level, her form just seemed to be to melt. And particularly that last one was not very good at all. She retreated and really didn't factor in the race whatsoever. So I think this horse is in declining form. I think going back, this race gives her some class relief, so that's a positive. And she's a hard knocker on the front end. But I think there's others a little more qualified right now to win this race. So I would, if you like her, I would absolutely have to have a price, but I think underneath is more likely. Jolly Miss Jill is the first off the claim for Linda Rice, and for 3-year-olds against older, she's 23%, 55% in the money with a $2.03 ROI. So those are all positives. She's got Jose Ortiz aboard. That's her A rider. I think ran a good race last time. Just got nailed by Lady Mine, who we'll talk about in a second. But I think this one's headed in the right direction, and I think Linda Rice will get a good race out of this one. At 6-1, I think that's a pretty good price. So I think Jolly Miss Jill is a win candidate. Number 6 is Lady Mine, and this one is got another one with kind of some mixed signals. That last race was unbelievable. This one was climbing at the back, had all kinds of problems, fell back to dead last, and was way out of it. And then swung out about 6 wide and just made a huge closing run with big strides. And it was really impressive to get up and nail Jolly Miss Jill at the wire. Has had some, this one has some back class. You see, ran in a couple of ungraded stakes. against state breds, and wasn't terribly promising after the Seeking Ante. But there may have been some other reasons for that. But you see that James Chapman obviously got a lot out of her when he claimed her, so that's a positive. And now Jeremiah Englehart's got her, and he's good first off the claim as well. So I don't know if being that far back would be effective this time, but you do see most of the time this one rates a little bit closer. So maybe I think underneath is probably more likely, but if there is a pace meltdown, this one could be there. Icy Reply is James Ferraro trains, and he made a jockey switch to this one to Javier Castellano from Eric Cancel, and I think that's a good sign that maybe he can get a little more out of this one. The last couple in class have been okay, but you do note that after winning that 16,000 claimer 3-back with Javier Castellano aboard, the next two starts were a steady decline in form. Not precipitous, but I mean it was fairly decent. So maybe putting Javier back aboard will help the cause. This one's pretty consistent. You can say that, and has 4 wins, which is more than you can say for most of them in here. The last one was in the slop, and this one does have a win. So you can't really excuse the last one because of the mud. But in general, I think this one, because of the back class, I mean, not necessarily the back class, but just the fact that this one's pretty consistent and a buyer that probably is a winner here. With Javier aboard, maybe you want to give this one a shot. My Girl Jow is just broke her maiden at the 40,000 level, and is now facing winners for the first time. And that was a big jump over anything she had done previously, and that screams bounce to me, especially first time against winners, so I'll pass. Number 9 is Meraviglioso, and Dick Dutrow trains. You see he upgrades to Joel Rosario, which is a big step up from Jaime Torres for sure. And the last race, this one wasn't bad, was hanging in there. And, excuse me, rated pretty well off the pace most of the time, just couldn't get it done. But you have to look back and you see 3 starts back, this one was running in a graded stakes. So there's a little bit of a concern that couldn't get it done at the starter allowance level, be given the class relief from there. But I think this one is in decent form, and given the fact that they thought enough to put this one in the graded stakes, I think you consider, especially with the jockey change. The second leg of the late Big Four is the 8th race, and it's an N1X allowance. Now one is a 2 lifetime for 3-year-olds and up, fillies and mares on the inner turf at 6 furlongs. Number 1 is a Willaway, and trained by Mitchell Friedman, who's pretty cold at this meet, and this one just doesn't stack up class-wise. Even going to turf, Dublin is a 2% first-time turf sire, and this one's been an N1X class forever with very limited success, so I'll pass. Number 2 is Plenitude, trained by Christophe Clement, and upgrades the jockey to Joel Rosario to a degree. He's okay on turf, nothing more than that. So he just broke her maiden on the dirt, and with a decent effort, I guess you could say. Quality Road is 11% first-time turf, and the thing that is a little interesting, though, is the Dam has a pretty solid record with 3-year-olds. She's 2 for 8. And 5 out of 8 in the money, but 0 on the turf. So you can. There's a little bit of class here. I mean, I could expect an improvement, especially with Clement training. He is 19% first-time turf, 3-year-olds versus older. So I would expect improvement, but the waters are pretty deep here. So if I was going to use, I'd have to have that better price than 6 to 1. Frosted Oats, trained by Belmont. Junior Alvarado is a rider. He's having his usual nice meet. This one fits in the class, has been pretty steady, and is cutting back a little bit from 7 to 6 furlongs. I don't think that's going to be an issue. Pretty logical win candidate. Belmont's 19% third off the layoff. I'd expect this one to be there at the end. Number 4 is Palace Gossip. Kind of interesting. Anthony Dutrow is having a nice meet, and this one's been freshened up a little bit. Has been in the class and has done pretty well, including a win at the state bred N1X level at this distance. Would have to improve a little bit buyer-wise, but I could see this one being on the lead all alone, and then who knows what might happen. But I think you can, you could use this one at 6-1. That's pretty square price, but underneath probably more likely. But I would use. Z First is trained by Steve Klasaris. Got Jose Ortiz aboard, and this is second off the layoff and a cutback from route to sprint. It's not a great angle for Steve Klasaris. He's 9%. And class is a little bit of an issue when you consider some of the other runners in this race. But this one is pretty consistent, pretty hard trier. And, I could definitely see with the cutback, this one factoring at 8-1. That's a pretty good price. Candle is the favorite at 2-1. Trained by Shug McGahee, who's kind of cold. He's 1 for 20 in this meet. But you do get Javier Castellano, and you do get a freshening. He's 0 for 2 with this angle 3-year-olds against older off a layoff. But if you look back at this one's form, you can see the first two at Roots were not too promising. But once they cut back to 6 furlongs, this one ran a really nice race. So that may have been the ticket. Went back to the Roots a couple of times and did a lot better than previous. So you can think that this one's probably on the upswing. And this one might get shoved off the schneid. I mean, I think this is a logical use. Shoot Out the Lights is kind of interesting. Send some mixed signals. You get Wesley Ward, you get a Rod Ortiz, and you can't beat that for connections at a turf sprint. This one went for $525,000 at the Keeneland September sale, so there's definitely some expectations. And they were validated to a degree with the first effort at Gulfstream, but that was a pretty big clunker in the Mademoiselle in the next start. And I think that, was the favorite and really didn't, was a little... was involved a little bit early and then just dropped right off a cliff. So has to redeem herself. It's certainly possible. This one's had a little bit of a freshening, and the last work is encouraging. But I don't know, at 5-2, if I really like that price a whole lot. But it's Wesley Ward, and you almost sort of have to use. Game Theory just isn't good enough compared to the rest of the field. You can see that the 50-1 is completely validated, and there's really nothing to endorse this one with, so I would pass. You do have a lot of main track onlys. I haven't seen the weather forecast, but I'll assume they're going to run this on turf. Of the ones who would be on the dirt, the 9 Cupid's Heart looks like a very logical horse. You can see that has had some pretty good efforts and is 3 wins, so 3 out of 5. So I would consider this one a logical use. Cupid's Girl, James Ryerson kind of cold in the meet, and this one's been at the starter allowance level for a while, and it has been okay. But I think this is a little bit of a class jump, and I'd be very careful at 4-1. Tua T is kind of the same thing. He's been at the N1X level seemingly forever and hasn't graduated. That's an immediate red flag. But I will say this: Orlando Noda is pretty hot lately. So you do have that, and it depends on what kind of rider he has. So maybe you give this one a look if it goes on the dirt. Jason Carrot is cross-entered. I believe he's going to be running on Thursday as well. So you have to wait and see which race this one actually points to. Another one that's been at the N1X level for a while, and I think they were moving this one to turf, if I'm not mistaken, for the Thursday card. So obviously they're looking to jumpstart this one to a degree. So again, this was one I'd be very careful with if she draws it. The third leg of the late pick 4 is the 9th at Belmont, and it's an optional claimer for $50,000. Non-winners at 2 lifetime. For 3-year-olds and up, fillies and mares, and it's run on the dirt at a mile and a 16th. And of course, we always have to remember at Belmont, the mile and a 16th is a 1-turn race. Number 1 is I'm Buzzy. He's not coming in the greatest of form. They're putting blinkers back on, and Chris Engelhard claimed this horse. So first off, the claim is a pretty good angle for him. But he's up for a tag right away, right after claiming him. and I mean it's 50,000. He was claimed for 32, so it's not that as much of a concern as perhaps it might be in other cases. But this one, putting the blinkers back on might help, but I don't know if that's really the problem. This one just looks a little running a little off form, and I think I want to look elsewhere. Number 2 is Wishing on a Star. It's trained by Horacio De Paz. Trevor McCarthy's a little cold as a jockey right now, running terribly well. This one is improving and has been at the starter allowance level, so it's a little bit of a class hike, but this one is improving. And but the main issue, more than anything, is this one has a lot of problems at the gate. You see off heels, bobbled, and more to the point is this one can be very rank and has a consistent history of being so. The last race apparently was not, so that's a good sign. And you are getting a horse coming off the career high buyer, but at 12-1, maybe you think about this one for under, but I think that's probably the limit given some of the others in this field. Number 3 is Guns and Graces, trained by Chad Brown and Rad Ortiz aboard, so you got Dynamite Connections. They're clicking at 40%. We saw this one on the Oaks Trail a little earlier with a pretty good effort in the Vonadale with a really big close behind Darth Vader. Followed it up with a decent effort in the Ashland. Not the greatest, but it wasn't bad either. The real concern I kind of have is that when they dropped her in class to an optional 100, kind of ran an okay effort, and it was okay, but I mean, and it was a little bit of a better buyer, so there's been some slight improvement, but I don't know how much more in the tank this one has. I'm just not overly sure. The one good thing is that she does come from off the pace and has a late running style, and there is a fair amount of speed in this race. So this is, I would definitely use the connections and all that. Number 4 is Swoop to Finish, trained by Belmont. He's got Junior Alvarado as a rider, and one of the things that he will have an advantage being on the engine early, being the closest inside speed. But you do see here that this one has a tendency to fold the tent late in a race. Most of the efforts have been on turf, so this is a turn back. In fact, it is the first effort on dirt. So I think they're trying to find a place for this one. If anybody's going to get this one going, it's Belmont, and coming off a layoff. He's had plenty of time to work with this one. So it could be at 10-1, you might be getting a pretty good price. The only thing is there's a lot of other speed in this race, and that's really the big issue. Number 5 is Just Catherine. Jose Jimenez is doing pretty well. He's 2 for 4 right now. So the barn's going well, and he's got Manny Franco aboard for this one. Was doing pretty well down in Gulfstream, and they felt so good about this one they put her in the Gulfstream Oaks and crash, and not much happened there. But you have had some time off, a little bit of a freshening, and Jose Jimenez is 23% and 55% of the money in this spot, so it's a good angle. This horse will likely run a pretty good race. The question that I have is that she'll be closing as well as Guns and Graces. This one might be a little closer to the pace, but it's a little iffy. This is a pretty salty bunch in here. So if you like this one, 15-1 is a pretty good price. Probably under is a better bet, though. Number 6 is Amity Island. This one just isn't good enough. Has been in the class for quite some time, and really hasn't been terribly successful. So I would pass. Number 7 is Sunset Louise, trained by Bruce Levine, and you get Jose Ortiz aboard. Second off the layoff is a good angle for him, and this one has shown a little bit of promise. It's all been at the State Bred Company, but has done pretty well, and an 81 buyer is a pretty good number for this race. The one concern is that when they did move it to Stakes Company in the Empire Distaff, it didn't work out terribly well. But the good news is this one came off the layoff and debuted at 4 with a near high buyer. So this one's in pretty good form. The issue, of course, again, is there is other pace in this race right next door, and that might make it tough for this one to move forward again, but it's entirely possible. And I would consider at 7-2, that's a little low for me, but you might want to think about this one, perhaps under more than anything else. Number 8 is Buston Bay. At 6-1, this feels like a really good bargain. You got Linda Rice training, who's red hot, and this one's in excellent form. You see, the last 3 has been getting better each start. 1 turn mile is exactly what this one wants. It's right in a wheelhouse, and in the last race, 1 for fun, it was geared down. So you really have to like that. So there's really no reason not to use this horse. I'd like to see Jose Ortiz on this one because that is Linda's A rider. But you see Dylan Davis has been riding the last couple with good success. So this one's really logical as a win candidate, I think, especially since the more prominent horse in Guns and Graces will be coming from well off it. So this one will be able to exact some control. Number 9 is Suspended Campaign. And this one just kind of has a penchant for being in the money but never winning. Hasn't won in 5 starts and has 3 straight thirds, and it just looks like this one finds a way to just get into the money, and that's probably the extent of the participation in this race. So if you like this one at 8-1, I would use under only. Number 10 is Sacred Wish, and we saw this one on the Oaks Trail for a little while too. Ran in the Gulfstream Park Oaks, and I was a little concerned about this one around 2 turns for the first time, but acquitted herself very well and got a nice second to Affirmative Lady. The big issue, of course, though, was in the Black Eyed Susan. She didn't build off of that at all, and so maybe they found their limit, or maybe it was just a class issue. You see, she was keen early and then backed right up towards the end of it. It was a pretty good bunch with Hoosier Philly and especially Feza up on the front end. So it's not that much of a sin to not do well. So this will be a bit of a class relief. I do wonder a little bit about this one after coming back fairly soon after a race where she didn't do very well, and I don't see this as really being a great confidence builder. So at 7-2, I would be really careful with this one. The last leg of the pick 4 is the 10th at Belmont. It's a state-bred maiden special weight for fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up, and it's on the dirt at 6 furlongs. Number 1 is Shaman Princess, and if you take away those 2 starts in the mud, this one's looking pretty good. That the 2-back effort would probably be a winning one here, and so it's displayed some early lick and is on the rail. You do get Jaime Torres aboard, which is a little bit of a concern, but you do see they clicked last time 2-back. So with a dry track, I think this one's a logical contender. At 5-1, that's a pretty good rate. Number 2 is Bonadu. This is another one that a dry track helps. You see that 7 furlong effort, getting a second bracketed between 2 efforts in the mud. The really attractive thing to me is that those first 2 races were key races. So she was facing some pretty stiff company, and coming second off the layoff for Danny Gargan should be a positive. So this one is a possibility as well, and at 12-1, that's a pretty good price. Number 3 is Nolita, and trained by Belmont. And it's funny because some of us, the old days, it used to be the word was that Belmont with the first, it was death, and but there are certain circumstances where they do click, and lately he's been better at it because I think he's been more aggressive with his 3-year-olds. He is 16% with firsters at 3 years old, 32% with state-bred 3 years old. So that's a really good angle for a master trainer. And now the sire is 7% first off, and the dam is 0 for 2 with firsters, but she's 22% with 3-year-olds and 1 for 6 in sprints. So there's some things to like here. 6-1's a pretty good rate for a nice trainer. So you might think about this one. Number 4 is Maxing the Bank. Joseph Parker is 0 for 6 with first-time starters, and there's really the sire is an 8% with firsters, and there's not a whole lot here to get excited about. You definitely want to wait one. Number 5 is She Slays, who's kind of sneaky good, and this is sort of the MO for John Kimmel, in my opinion. He just kind of he creeps up on you when you don't expect it. Now, he went out and got Jose Ortiz for this one. That's a really good sign right off the bat because they're 1 for 3 together. So he gets live mounts when he gets Jose Ortiz. The sire here, Distorted Humor, he's always known for being a good first-time starter, 16% with 3-year-old firsters. This is the first foal for the dam out of Ghost Sapper, so that you don't get anything help there. But it's a pretty good tab, and I wouldn't be surprised if this one factors. And at 8-1, that's a pretty good price. Number 6 is Timely Conquest. Mark Hennig is just not a first-time starter trainer. You see on the sheet here, he's 0 for 29 with first-time starters. He's a little better than that. He's actually 5%. You got a 6% first-time starter sire. I'll wait one. Number 7 is Mucho Mamma Mia, trained by Jeremiah Engelhardt, and you get Jose Lascano aboard. Excuse me. This one's been racing primarily on turf around 2 turns, which isn't much of a surprise with Mucho Macho Man. Jeremiah Engelhardt is 36% maiden claimer to maiden special weight, so that's a good angle here. But I think, a cutback in this case would, route to sprint is always an angle I love, but I don't really see where it's going to benefit this horse terribly much. Seems to be plateauing, and I don't know that that's going to breed a whole lot of room for improvement. If you like her, 20-1 is not a bad price, but I'm going to pass. Number 8 is Mim. Mark Cassie's kind of cold at this meet, but is coming off a layoff, and he's 24%. The one gets with first time with a trainer off a layoff with a 3-year-old. But the big concern is it's a $1.34 ROI, so he usually doesn't factor unless he's got the chalk. And I don't know that this one has. I've seen enough here to get me real excited about this one, particularly since Practical Joke is a really good first-time starter sire, and this one didn't factor at all. So if Linda Rice couldn't get more out of this one, I don't know that Mark Cassie can either. So I'm going to pass. Number 9 is Island Rose, and this one's very interesting. You got Gunrunner as the sire, which we love right away. He's 15% with firsters. The Dam, Real Clever Trick, is 2 for 9 with firsters and 5 for 9 in the money with first-time starters. So that's very encouraging. You're getting it on both ends. The tab looks pretty good. You got a couple of bullets, 3 and 4 back. So all systems are go. I would say Charlie Baker is not the greatest with first-time starters, but sometimes he's a good trainer and he'll know what to do with a good horse. So I think this is one you got to use if you get 6-1. I think that's an awesome price. Number 10 is Echo and Eternity, and this one just came out of what has now become a key race because Angelique just won. This is Thursday afternoon. I'm taping this. And Angelique just won this afternoon. So you have she won a start. Dancer Dioro won next time out, and this one had hopped at the break. It didn't get off to a good start, but closed well, made a sustained drive, and then kind of flattened out. So that's classic MO for a first-time starter. I'll expect a lot better in this race. Excuse me, particularly since Danny Gargan is 28% with second-time starters on a dry track. This one should be dangerous at 7-2s. On the outside post, I don't know that I like that so much, but I think this one's a player here. Number 11, Montauk Mystique. Mike Maselli, he's 8% with first-time starters. And you do see a bullet a couple works back, but Lauban, as we noted earlier, was 8% first time off the bench, and I'm probably going to wait for those reasons. Number 12 is Big Hazel, trained by David Donk. And you get a Rod Ortiz aboard, which does have to raise an eyebrow a little bit. This one had a pretty good debut. Excuse me. 47, got a 47 buyer and a second in the debut effort. But on dirt, and then curiously, they switched this one to turf for some reason, and obviously it backfired. Had 2 starts that didn't matter too much. So maybe the cutback to a sprint and also the surface switch will be the difference. When you have to make a lot of changes, though, that doesn't really get me too excited about a horse. And I don't see a lot here to really get me excited, particularly from the 12 hole. So I'll pass on this one. So here's what our ticket looks like for the late pick four. On the 7th, we're going to use 5, 6, and 9. In the 8th, we're going to use 3 and 6, and the 9 if he draws in. She draws in, I believe. In the 9th, we're going to use 3, 7, and 8. And in the 10th, I think that's a pretty wide open maiden race. We want to spread a little bit. We're going to have the 1, 3, 5, 9, and 10. So 3 times 2 is 6, times 3 is 18, times 5 is 120. So that's a $60 ticket and a 50-cent base. So I hope our analysis helps you with the late pick four on Friday. I think it's a pretty good one, and hopefully wish you the best of luck to take it down. We will have more coverage. We're going to have coverage about Royal Ascot later on over the course of the weekend. More than likely, we'll have postings for that, and I think we're going to have some postings about Monmouth on Saturday because the Salvatore Mile is being run. So be on the lookout for that as well. And of course, if you do like what you see here, please like and subscribe. And we do thank you for coming by, and keep those comments coming. Love to hear from you guys, and I'll be talking to you in the very near future. And until then, be well.